That evening, sitting in the little hotel room by myself with Gary, I realized how unpredictable life could be. I was already anxious. My husband, Logan, had been abroad for several months in another city. I missed him, certainly, but it wasn't just about his absence. His negligence, his lack of interest, that was the real problem. Lonely evenings were eating away at my soul. But how could I have known that asking my stepson Gary to take me to his dad would lead to the two of us being cooped up in a small hotel room with only one bed? What was going to happen was beyond my imagination. Let me take you through every detail from the very beginning. I promise the conclusion of this story will be far more fascinating than you can ever imagine. That morning, as I was leaving the house, I caught a quick glance in the mirror. I was tense, certainly, but I still looked fantastic. Even with Logan leaving me so alone, I still felt attractive, still felt alive. But even those sensations weren't enough anymore. They didn't satisfy me. Gary was finishing his breakfast in the kitchen when I called out from behind. "I know you're starting college at the end of this summer, but you still need to improve your driving. Come on, take me to your dad." He looked up at me, that same mischievous grin on his face as always. Gary was a nice kid. Quirky, hilarious, but he could also be a little rascal at times. "All right, stepmom," he teased, "but on one condition. Tell Dad to get me a nicer car for the summer." "We'll talk about it," I replied firmly, ushering him out the door. Inside, though, I was just thinking, let's get this trip over with. Little did I know the journey wouldn't go as planned. We had been driving for nearly 2 hours. I was in the back seat, scrolling through my phone, while Gary sang along to some odd song on the radio, tossing out ridiculous quips that made him laugh more than me. Then, suddenly, the car let out a dreadful noise, a hiss, and then it died completely. "What's happening?" I asked, trying not to sound too spooked. "I guess the car broke down," Gary muttered, pulling over to the side of the road, clearly annoyed. So there we were, trapped in the middle of nowhere. My phone barely had any signal, and there wasn't a soul in sight. We spent 2 hours arguing, calling every mechanic we could find and trying in vain to fix the damn thing. Finally, we had to accept the obvious. The only choice was to spend the night at the closest hotel. At the motel reception, as Gary chatted with the desk clerk, I stood behind him, frustrated as hell. If Logan finds out about this, he's going to lose it, I thought. But strangely, in that moment, I didn't feel like it mattered all that much. Deep down, I just knew. Tonight was going to change everything. Before the story gets any crazier, make sure you subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. And by the end of this, I'd love to see your support in the comments and with those likes. When we finally entered the room, all my expectations crashed and burned. The space was tiny, barely big enough to turn around in. One bed, one nightstand, a dim, flickering light overhead that made everything seem even more depressing. The ceiling felt low. The AC barely worked, and the small window overlooked nothing but the parking lot. "This is it?" I muttered, disappointed. Gary stepped in behind me, chuckling. "What were you expecting? A 5-star hotel? We're just here for one night, relax, stepmom." The teasing tone in his voice, combined with that cheeky grin, only made my frustration grow. But at the same time, I couldn't say I loathed Gary's carefree, laid-back attitude. Yet, being around him, though I would never acknowledge it, aroused something inside me. A kind of exhilaration I didn't quite understand. "This heat is killing me," I murmured, stroking the back of my neck. "I need a shower or I'm truly going to pass out." Certainly," Gary responded nonchalantly, flinging himself onto the bed and lying flat on his back. "This is your domain, Carmen. Do whatever you need to feel at home." I gazed at him for a second. His thin yet toned frame, along with the subtle boyishness of his features, gave him an odd kind of attractiveness. But I instantly pushed the thought out of my mind. He was Logan's son, after all. My stepson. I walked into the bathroom and slammed the door behind me. For a while, I just stared at my reflection in the mirror. My hair was plastered to my skin from the heat, yet I still looked good. I still had that spark. Turning the shower on, I let the water run before stepping under it, hoping it would wash away the tangled emotions rising inside me. I'm 47 years old, I thought. And Gary's not a kid anymore. He's 22, preparing to start college. And here we are, stuck together in this little motel room for a few days. The thought both troubled and unsettled me in a way I couldn't quite define. Logan popped into my head. "Logan, I wanted to surprise you. I wanted to visit you, to be with you. But now, I'm here, in this motel room with your son, and I don't know how to feel about it." The steam from the shower filled the small bathroom, the heat calming my body even as my mind raced. Gary's grin, his easygoing personality, it was kindling something unexpected inside me. Standing under the stream of water, I couldn't tell what this spark might turn into. But I felt something was happening. Later, I decided to go downstairs for dinner to clear my thoughts. I threw on a simple, flowing dress, light enough for the heat, but also comfortable, as if I were trying to shake off this odd tension. The hotel restaurant was modest but cozy, fitting for a place this small. I ordered a light meal and a glass of wine, hoping it would help me relax. By the time the sun had set and the streetlights outside the motel were flickering to life, I found my thoughts drifting back to the room upstairs. I wonder what Gary's doing right now. Someone as restless and full of energy as him surely wasn't having much fun being stuck in a cramped motel room. But that casual, carefree attitude of his, it was driving me mad in a way I couldn't quite explain. When my wine was finished, I gave my plate a final glance, pushed my chair back, and made my way upstairs, my steps deliberate. As I approached the room, everything was eerily quiet. I opened the door, and the sight before me left me momentarily breathless. Gary had taken a shower and was now lying on the bed in just a robe, completely knocked out. The robe, barely tied, revealed most of his lean, athletic body. His damp hair clung to his forehead, and there was a faint, contented smile on his lips, like he was lost in a pleasant dream. My heart started pounding. It was the last thing I expected to walk into. For a second, I hesitated by the door, unsure of what to do. Inside me, emotions swirled. An odd, uncomfortable mix. I felt uneasy, yet I couldn't take my eyes off him. "Carmen, what the hell are you doing?" "That's Logan's son," I scolded myself internally. But my eyes were drawn to the section of his robe that had slipped further apart. What I saw stirred something warm inside me. The limited size of the room only made matters worse. There wasn't another bed. It was either sleep close to him or spend the rest of the night in a chair. And in this heat, the thought of a chair seemed unbearable. Moving carefully, I stepped further into the room, Gary's steady, rhythmic breathing filling the space. I took a long breath, trying to focus, but the chaos inside me made it impossible to think clearly. "Get yourself together, Carmen," I muttered under my breath. "It's just one night, nothing more. This doesn't mean anything." I had planned to surprise Logan, and now I was stuck here. Be sensible, keep it together. Taking a few cautious steps toward the bed, I stared at Gary. The innocent smile on his face only made my already tangled thoughts even harder to process. I sat down on the edge of the bed, wondering how I was going to get through the night. Sometime in the middle of the night, a faint sound woke me. I barely opened my eyes, just enough to scan the room. I saw Gary shifting in bed, running a hand through his hair, scratching his head sleepily. I found myself watching him, but I kept my eyes only slightly open, pretending to still be asleep. Inside, though, I felt everything but calm. And then I felt it. His gaze on me. My heart pounded. He was watching me. I tried to keep up the act, maintaining my drowsy expression and lying still, but inside, my entire body was buzzing with awareness. Slowly, Gary reached for the belt of his robe. As he loosened it, the fabric slid off his shoulders, revealing more of his lean, toned physique. The subtle way his muscles shifted with each movement sent an unexpected warmth through me. I couldn't look away. In that instant, I recognized two things. I had no control over what was happening, and part of me didn't even want to stop it. Gary picked out a pair of shorts from the wardrobe, but as he did, he kept glancing back at me, as if trying to figure out whether I was awake. His stolen glances sent a thrill through me. I tried hard not to react, not to give anything away. But at the same time, I let the moment wash over me, consuming me entirely. After slipping on his shorts, he didn't return to bed. Instead, he sat down in the chair in the corner of the room and just watched me. Being observed so intently was both unnerving and thrilling in a way I couldn't explain. I kept my eyes closed, pretending to sleep. But how long could I really keep up the act? Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I sat up. When my eyes met Gary's, I made no effort to disguise the way my voice wavered as I whispered, "You're making me feel things I shouldn't, Gary." The words hung in the air, heavy and unshakable. At that moment, I knew nothing would ever be the same again. Gary's eyes flickered for a second. Then he took a deep breath before speaking. "I don't know, Carmen," he said, his voice low but steady. "We've been living under the same roof for a while now, ever since my dad left. And the more time we spend together, the more I feel for you. You might not know it, but sometimes I can't hide the way I feel. Right now, this feels like some kind of dream." His words caught me off guard, but they also awakened something within him. Gary didn't look away. His gaze held mine with an honesty and intensity that left me utterly entranced. "I need to wake up early to get the car fixed," he continued, though his voice sounded like he was trying to convince himself of that more than me. But his eyes never wavered, not even a little.